Halo Infinite ultimately disappointed me. We're a year after launch now, and this persistent Halo experience, well, isn't. I've sat down twice previously to write a Halo Infinite review. I obviously have quite a bit to say about the game. So welcome everybody, my name is Doragon and this is my 12 months later review of Halo Infinite. I've previously tried to do this twice before. I had a script that I actually finished, a full 18-page epic that I edited 45 minutes of footage together for before scrapping it. The other was a 5-page script, just starting to tackle the narrative. You'll now find both of those abandoned scripts on my Ko-Fi page, linked in the description, now that this review is live. So with all of this work, why have I never put a review video out for it? I played Infinite's campaign and beat it at launch, and I think for the most part I enjoyed it. I had a whale of a time in Infinite's PvP pre-campaign launch, and even dived into a couple of events after the campaign was out. I have all of the footage on my hard drive, a complete playthrough, and 2 decent video essay scripts. So what stopped me putting a review out for a year? It's a multifaceted issue, and every time I felt ready to attack the script in editing once more, 343 would publish a new roadmap or Halo blog and further alienate the fans of the game, new and old alike, and this would then need a rewrite of a big portion of that script. Those scripts as well, while okay to decent, took a long time to put together. A very long time. When I reread them or listen to the voiceovers I recorded now, they don't sound like me, and I want my content to be my own. But nearly every thought I have on those pages lines up with what other people have said. Even though I know these are my own words on the page, they sound like I copied someone else's. And that's most likely because I have a lot of negative thoughts towards Infinite, despite the enjoyment that I got from it. So, similar to all of the Saints Row reviews out there, it felt like I was saying the exact same things as everyone else. 12 months removed though, and a few more gaming experiences under my belt, I feel like I can return and review the game in my own words. Gameplay. Every moment that you interact with a game is gameplay. From basic movement to menus and inventory management, it's all part of the gameplay experience. Overall, I would call Halo Infinite's campaign gameplay okay to good, and the PvP gameplay as good to great. The starting point of OK for the campaign comes from 2 main factors: the open world and the menu's user interface. The open world is problematic for me, as it feels like it is there simply to say it's there. There's no meaning to this open world. It only serves the purpose of traversal from one point to another and then a collectathon. That's it. It serves no story purpose, and while slightly better than some of the ultra-barren Ubisoft open worlds, there's not a lot going on in it. Bandit camps, as we know them from every other open world, are there, and these can be fun for the first few that you do. But there are so many of them that once you've liberated 5 or 6, the gameplay loop is incredibly stale. You'll need more than the 5 or 6 that lead you to boredom, though, to have those needed for easy fast travel around the map, forcing an unnecessary and tedious grind upon the player at multiple points throughout their playthrough. The collectathon could have been rewarding, as it offers lore to fill in the story gaps between 5 and Infinite, and it offers gear upgrades. However, you can easily complete the game on hard mode with 0 upgrades outside of those earned through the main campaign. I know this because it's what I did. There's no requirement to go and get these upgrades. They're not needed to complete the game. Their gameplay impact is so minimal and not that meaningful that there is therefore no reason to explore the map and find its secrets. You could make a case that the world is worth it for the lore tidbits, but they could have been conveyed in an extra cutscene and aren't enough on their own to promote exploration of this massive open world. So instead, you're forced to explore, by the game's design, for extra fast travel points only. The fact that I would willingly ignore this entire sector of the game, and for the most part did, means that the inclusion of all these factors and the open world is completely pointless. And that's a shame, Because when you're in a story mission or moment, this feels like Halo for the first time since 343 took over. Unless, of course, you need to do anything in your menus. The menus are very stylistic, and that causes problems for me. I didn't find them clear or clean in my playthrough, which makes me not want to interact with them. The fact that I don't want to interact with them means, once again, I don't want to obtain the upgrades from the open world, so I don't have to engage with the menus. They're not obnoxious, and they don't prevent you from completing what you need to do in that specific menu. They work in that regard, but they don't feel accessible. And that's, to me, a fully able person. They're not clunky, they're not broken, they just kind of do their job in an overly cluttered and complex way. And that's the best that I can say about them. But that then does, of course, bring me onto the good stuff. Like the FPS experience. Let's not forget that the original Halo changed the landscape of console shooters. The twin stick usage, the shoulder buttons, and the precision like we'd never experienced before. Nowadays, that gameplay pinnacle still belongs to Bungie with Destiny 2, but 343 made Halo Infinite crispy. This doesn't feel soft or floaty like Halo 5 Guardians did. It doesn't feel like your enemies are complete bullet sponges like in 4. It's well balanced, has a good range of weapons, and feels satisfying in moment-to-moment gunplay. When this is paired with some strong story missions, it really does elicit strong nostalgic feelings. It feels like Halo. Chief is strong and weighty. Different guns do different things and are better against different enemies. Gameplay is expanded with your tools, though the only one I used more than just messing around with once I obtained it was the grappling hook. But this opened up some amazing gameplay opportunities. Boss battles could be tactical. Most of the time, though, I tended to find them a bit tedious, as many were bigger versions of grunt enemies, just with a bigger health pool. Who knows, maybe I've been spoiled by damage phases, enemy resistances, and mechanics to beat a boss in games like Kena Bridge of Spirits, in which case, this just felt tired in many of the boss encounters. But they don't detract from the gameplay flow. Because we had new traversal mechanics in the game, like the aforementioned grappling hook, we had new types of platforming sections, which were huge fun, even if I did fail at them a couple of times. The game was solid. The gameplay is great. It's just a couple of, admittedly rather large factors already spoken about, that drag it back from being one of those pinnacle FPS experiences. That feeling of a solid and fun foundation translates superbly into the PvP aspect of the game too. Guns feel good whether on controller or mouse and keyboard. The skill-based matchmaking seems to work really well, making every game competitive, but fun. And you can play with your friends whether they're on PC, console, or cloud. Overall, wherever you decide to play within Halo Infinite, the actual gameplay of the game is good. It's the design factors around that hurt it. Let's bring it back to that open world for a moment, and the side quests available in it. Most would fall into the category of a fetch quest. Now, arbitrary fetch quests are done to death in the industry. Almost every open world game has them. This is true of Horizon Forbidden West, God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, Forza Horizon 4 and 5, every Assassin's Creed, every Elder Scrolls. The list goes on. So why do they seem more egregious in Halo Infinite? Put simply, it's because of how they're designed and positioned. Now let's pull up a 2022 game for an example of how to do a fetch quest well. God of War Ragnarok. The fetch quests in Ragnarok tend to be side missions. They have a strong narrative to them, and they happen on their own enclosed islands or locations, which just so happen to be some of the prettiest and most compelling in the game. You want to explore and complete these quests for the gameplay rewards, both in the mission design itself and for the loot at the end of it to upgrade your gear, which then has a drastic impact on your gameplay thereafter. It's quite simple, therefore, to create a good fetch quest. What you don't do is take that basis and repeat it for every side quest in the game. Go to point A, collect or destroy something, return to point 0, gain XP. Now this is an overly simple explanation of a fetch quest, but it's what every fetch quest in Infinite is. This is made worse when that bare-bones design is expanded over 15 kilometers of the map and put in as a main story quest with no reason as to why you're doing this until after it's completed. This brings the game's pacing to a screeching halt in the third act of the title. This choice completely killed my enjoyment of the game, and it did it right before the crescendo, which, when the story revelations then happened, that we'll address further later, made them even harder to swallow, because I was already annoyed at the game. And it's a common theme in Halo Infinite. It's the simple things done badly that keep hitting hardest. A lack of player reward for engaging with side quests is pretty up there. Minimal gameplay impact from upgrades, glitches, bugs and crashes in a marquee first-party title, which, considering I played it on the cloud, I have to ask, how the hell did it crash? It has boring open-world traversal, stale and repetitive gameplay loops, incredibly poor and stingy multiplayer XP gains. But probably the worst aspects to be missing in a Halo game? No co-op and no Forge at launch. Heck, when I'm writing this script, these features are meant to be going live in the game this week. But they've cancelled split-screen co-op completely and pushed this particular launch back 3 times already. These are vital pillars of the series. Vital gameplay aspects to fans. To be missing for a year, or outright cancelled after their delivery was promised multiple times, is not acceptable from a marquee first-party title and studio. And why are these facets so late or missing? Infinite went into full launch on the 8th of December 2021 after being delayed by a full 12 months to, and I quote, polish the game and make the final few tweaks. And it's still launched in an unfinished state for full price. A year down the line again in December 2022, and even as a live service game, it still isn't finished. Now, we don't know why this is specifically. There are rumours and hearsay to point to the size of the team at 343 holding updates and completion back. There's simply not enough people to complete the work. Rumours suggest that Microsoft's funding and pressure from studio heads to put a product out in unrealistic timelines contributed heavily to this unfinished game. Some reports have stated that the skills required to operate a live service game simply don't exist within 343. Whatever the reason, it only buys a company so much free will before the pitchforks turn upon them. And turn they did. Pretty darn quickly. Most of the unrest came from PvP, which, considering how good the gameplay is, should be surprising. But the progression system wouldn't allow you to actually progress by using that excellent gameplay as you wanted. Instead, you had daily challenges, meaning you had to play a certain way to earn any XP at all and progress the battle pass. And some of these challenges were completely obnoxious. 25 headshot kills with a pistol, for example, one of the weakest guns in the game. How about 10 backstab kills? That not do it for you? 5 gravity hammer double kills. None sound terrible if they were additional challenges that you had the option of completing if you want to. But they were required to advance your multiplayer XP at all. And this forced people to run around the map trying to get kills in unfun manners to progress. With only 3 challenges per day and no XP earnings in any other manner, it suddenly made progression in Halo Infinite's multiplayer feel more like a job than a fun hobby. Now, 343 did tweak and adjust this situation over the course of 3 months. They settled on offering a decreasing returns flat XP gain, game by game, alongside the challenges. This faced 2 insurmountable challenges though. 1. Much of the damage had already been done, and people were actively walking away from the game. This wasn't enough to call them back and keep them there. And 2, this fix felt like a stopgap at best until they could come up with something better. But it's still in place now, and wasn't received well at its implementation. Couple all of this with slow and drastic balance patches to launching with only 3 game modes to no new maps for 6 months, season length dragging on exponentially with Season 1 being 6 months and Season 2 being 9, single objective competitive playlists, and so on, while the moment-to-moment gameplay is fun, the rest of the design absolutely sucks. Halo 3 came out in 2007, 14 years before Infinite. Halo 3 is still being played to this day with great positivity. Granted, it's in the Master Chief Collection now, and not on the original release or servers. But to this day, a 14-year-old FPS title with minimal aftermarket updates or tweaks is being played. The design of that game was so good and so comprehensive out of the box that people keep wanting to go back for the feeling of the gameplay alone. Now, while the gameplay in Infinite is good, missing and poorly designed features hamper that feeling. Bugs that haven't been touched for 6 to 10 months hamper that feeling. Lackluster mission design and the inability to replay campaign missions for a year hamper that feeling. The design made the entire game, PvE or PvP, feel like a one-and-done scenario, which when it's meant to be a live service title, and hasn't had any significant updates in a year, where single-player updates outside of adding previously cut features don't appear to be planned from the currently released information, combined, make it all feel like an abject failure. Narrative. I started this review by saying that this game ultimately disappointed me. Despite what I've already said, much of my disappointment comes from the narrative. Now, strangely, I don't dislike much of this actual story. In the microcosm of just this game, it actually works, and I like it. But that's where my personal problems begin with it. You see, as not great as Halo 5 was, one thing it did well was set up an epic conclusion to 343's trilogy that would see us going head-to-head with Cortana in a bid to save the galaxy from Imperial peace, aka slavery or death. It was an emotional story that was woven through Halo 4, Spartan Ops, and Halo 5, no matter how good or bad any of those releases were. But it doesn't appear in Infinite. At least, not in earnest. Not in how 5 set it up. Through the whole of this game, the Cortana story is a side concern, despite her being a threat to the entire galaxy. What feels like out of nowhere, the Banished are the threat, and not Cortana. Now I know this came from Halo Wars 2, but that's a side release game. Why is that spin-off narrative now the main focus of the third game in a trilogy, rather than the galaxy-encompassing threat from the first and second games in the trilogy? This lack of continuity from game to game is what 343's era in charge of Halo has really suffered from. Plot points are advanced or resolved in paywalled DLC, external media, or just not resolved at all and moved past. But with Infinite, it's worse. The external media pre-release advanced the Cortana story, to then get a sequel that doesn't touch the story that came before, that has even been building outside of the game, is at best jarring, and at worst, game-killing. For me personally, the reality was closer to that game-killing feeling. I came in ready for the Cortana showdown, willing to try and save her, but ready to do the necessary if saving her wasn't an option. Instead, I'm stranded on Zeta Halo from Halo Wars 2, fighting the Banished and not really interacting with the Cortana story until the final mission, where I then learn the entire thing was resolved off-screen before the actions of this game even started. Now, I was already angry with the game because of that massive boring fetch quest before this final mission. But this story revelation? This massive off-screen resolution to a massive cliffhanger and story that I wanted to actually experience made me question what the entire point of 343's era of Halo was for. From my experiences, it wasn't for the gameplay, as that changed game to game and never reached the heights of Bungie's Halo games. It wasn't for the story, as so much of it was resolved or advanced off-screen. So what you're digesting here is completely unrelated. It's not for the competitive crowd, as progression design actively works against the player. It's not for the lore nerds, as when you try to piece it all together and make it make sense, without massive contrivances or taking things on faith, you just can't get sense out of it. To give you an idea of how bad this felt, imagine a sequel to 2018's God of War, where instead of facing Ragnarok head-on, you start a new journey and hear about the resolution of Ragnarok in cutscenes late in the game. That's how awful this choice of story in Halo Infinite is. Now, in a bubble, it is a decent story with some excellent character growth. Now, I love the flippant one-liner chief from the original trilogy, but that sort of character can become very stale very quickly. And after the yo-yo effect of a fully communicative chief with an actual emotional relationship with Cortana in 4 to a bit of an avatar puppet in 5, to have him address all of those feelings throughout this narrative and start to treat people with more respect in Infinite is a huge character win in my book. He's still stoic when the situation calls for it, he still has one-liners, but he's more nuanced, and he's played as an older, more weary warrior this time around, similar to how Kratos was portrayed in God of War 2018. The weapon, Chief's new AI companion, allows Jennifer Hale to really stretch her Halo performance like the rest of the series hasn't allowed her to. She's brave but timid, assured but questioning, and many more wonderfully conflicting emotions and states. The Harbinger and Escharum are a little disappointing, especially as the Harbinger has been teased since 2012. The Harbinger is shown to be strong, and Escharum is shown to be quite wily for a banished general. But neither are memorable. I even had to look up Escharam's name while writing this script, as he's that unmemorable. If you want to know how to do a long-teased enemy and their followers well, just look to Halo's creators Bungie and what they did with Savathun in the Destiny 2 Witch Queen expansion. That character was teased in annual releases for 8 years, and when she arrived, she was more powerful than we ever imagined, more cunning than we could have thought, and had an entire annual expansion dedicated to her. The Harbinger, by comparison, was basically a cameo in Infinite. She ran away upon our first encounter with her, and was then a rather easy boss battle a little later. Considering she's the supposed overarching antagonist since 4, and not Cortana, this presentation, and swift, easy dispatch of her, was very disappointing. Look, a good narrative has a payoff, whether that is in a self-contained singular release or series. Assassin's Creed, for example, has fallen out of many long-term fans' favour because there is no payoff for the investment. It just keeps going with no end in sight, and that's not satisfying. Star Wars Episodes 4, 5 and 6 are remembered incredibly fondly because they had payoff in their singular and trilogy stories. Wherever you look at Halo Infinite's narrative from, though, whatever angle you choose to try and enjoy or critique, you will be lacking payoff. Whether from the Reclaimer story of the Harbinger, the Cortana and the Guardians from 5, even the Banished from Infinite, none of them give you a satisfying conclusion or payoff. In Infinite specifically, after 15-ish hours of main campaign gameplay, Chief's final words mirror the first ones he uttered when arriving at the first forward operating base on Zeta Halo. "We finished the fight." These are the final words of the campaign after the disappointing conclusions to Cortana and the Harbinger. The fight isn't finished. The story isn't finished. The aspects that were felt rushed or lazy, especially those resolved off-screen. There is no payoff for an invested player in Halo Infinite's campaign, which means it isn't complete. It isn't finished. It hasn't had any additions in 12 months, and it is therefore terribly disappointing. Live service. Live service can be a bit of a dirty word in some circles. Currently, when people hear the term, they think of battle passes, hundreds of microtransactions, grindy repetitive gameplay, and unfinished titles. Many games that fall under the live service umbrella have given us great reason to think like this. Anthem, Crucible, Marvel's Avengers, even Destiny in the early release of each title. All of these games shipped in a state that wasn't good, that wasn't ready for release. Even Fortnite released and still is in beta, so that when things go wrong they can say, "Oh, it's not a full release, we'll fix it when we can." The term live service has become a bit of a cop-out for development studios, so that they can release an unfinished, unpolished game and get their payday while they maybe continue working on it once it's out. But this isn't what the term actually means. A live service game just means it will keep evolving once it's released, with new game modes, new stories, new maps, new challenges, new features, new balancing, new and evolving things that fit that game. Just look at World of Warcraft, Destiny 2, Splitgate and Among Us as games that take that ethos seriously. Unfortunately for us, and as alluded to on multiple occasions by Xbox head Phil Spencer, Halo Infinite falls into the former, lazy cop-out category. It released before it was ready, even after a 12-month delay. It was forced to be made as a live service game rather than a self-contained Halo title. The team made promises about inclusions that they likely knew they couldn't meet, and even after being called out for this practice, they doubled down on it. Let's be honest here. 2 events repeated 3 times in the first 6 months isn't engaging. 2 new modes and 4 new maps in a year isn't enough for a PvP experience when it launched with only 3 modes and 6 maps. Co-op taking a year and only being half delivered isn't good enough. We've spoken about these issues already, but they wouldn't be issues if the game wasn't out yet. They wouldn't be as big an issue if the live service model had allowed the situations to be addressed within the first 3 to 4 months. But 12 months, and we still don't have a finished game. We don't have a Taken King-like expansion coming that saved and elevated the original Destiny. Instead, we're left with an unfinished title. And judging by other live service failures, I could easily see Halo Infinite going the way of Anthem if something drastically positive doesn't happen to the game soon. The cloud experience. The way that you play a game makes a difference to the experience. My Halo Infinite experience was via the cloud. And let's just say, it's not a great advertisement for the Xbox ecosystem. For a service that isn't in beta on Android where I play, in fact it's been in full release for more than 2 years now, to still have input lag, refresh, frame rate and screen tearing issues, along with full game crashes, is unacceptable. But this is the very situation that I encountered on 550 megabit per second broadband with a 12 millisecond ping. Whichever way you cut it, even at the £10.99 per month price of Game Pass Ultimate, Xbox's cloud offering, while brilliantly accessible, sucks in everything else by the application interface. In the 12-month period since Infinite launched, we've seen Microsoft undermine their own expensive cloud offering to the European Commission, the British Competition Courts, and multiple journalists. We've also seen Stadia die and Luna lose most of its employees in a mass 10,000-person layoff. The cloud experience could easily be ready and easily be as good as console if the companies just invested in it. But it feels with Microsoft as though it is a tick box exercise right now, just to say that they have it. If they can then con a few more people out of a subscription fee with empty promises, why shouldn't they? Right now, cloud gaming in general has taken a massive backwards step. And when one of the biggest players is using their cloud offering as a bargaining chip to throw away, it begs how much do they actually care about their players? All of this leads to one massive question for me. Can Xbox actually make anything good anymore? Can they make a good game? Halo Infinite was the last release from a first-party Xbox studio, and that came out in December 2021. This review is releasing a year later, and since that point, no new games have been released by Xbox, and the first looks we've had of their upcoming or delayed titles have been rather ripped apart thus far online. To add insult to injury, they're not due until mid-2023 at the absolute earliest. The last 2 Xbox first-party games I played were both disappointing, but for different reasons. Halo, as I've covered in depth in this review, and Forza Horizon 5 as it was literally just a new skin on 4. I know of so many people and stories where they've got rid of the Series X or S consoles because they have no exclusives coming. Exclusive games are your differentiating factor, that when all else is equal, determine where a player plays. Right now, Xbox have either none or very disappointing ones. And that should be a very worrying situation for Xbox. Tribalism will only get them so far. For as much as the hyperfans will stand and defend a platform, if you don't give them games, they are eventually going to turn to those that do. But what of Halo? That's what this entire video is about after all. To call a game bad, or give it a low score, it has to just be wrong in nearly everything that it does. And that's not Halo Infinite. But with a bad game, it's almost a badge of honour. At least it messed everything up. When a game's core is good, poor design, updates, narrative and implementation hit that bit harder, hurt the player that bit more. And that is Infinite. There is a ghost of a great game within this release, but the lack of attention, the lack of time, the lack of concern to the fan that led to very simplistic or basic implementations of many structures of the game prevent that great game from breaking out. Instead, everything feels just that little bit off, just that bit more frustrating than it needs to be, off-putting when there's no obvious reason as to why. And that, my friends, is disappointment. And that is my biggest takeaway from Halo Infinite. You know what isn't a disappointment though? A subscribe to the channel and this other review looking at Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. Otherwise, thank you so much for your viewership, and until next time, have a fantastic day and take care.